Hey, this is John from Alloy211. In this video, I will be disassembling and reassembling a Benchmade Griptilian pocket knife. Now, this is not my Benchmade Griptilian, it's actually one of my buddies. Now, I've sharpened this a couple times for him before in the past, and he asked me if I could flip the clip from this side to this side, which I can because I have a Benchmade blue box, which has these little tiny T6 Torxes that you need for that. So, I told him I'd do it, and I also told him that I was going to make a video on taking it apart because I thought, well, this is a pretty popular Benchmade. People might want to know how to take it apart. And before this knife, I'd never taken one of these axis locks apart. So I was kind of interested to see how those worked. The first things you'll need if you do not have a Benchmade blue box, although the newer blue boxes don't look quite like this, you can still get them pretty cheap. And if you have a Benchmade knife, I do recommend getting one. You'll need a T6 Torx bit and a T10. Those are the only two bits you'll need, and a driver. We'll go ahead and start, pardon me, on the back side with the shallow screw, which is a T6. Well, you'll see what I mean by shallow in a second. As you can see, this is a short screw. Set that there. And now we'll go ahead and take out the screws along the edge of the handle here. And as you can see, these outer screws are longer. Still T6s, but they are longer. That's because they hold the two halves of the handle together. You'll see when I take it apart what I mean. Boop. And that one. I guess we'll go ahead and take the clip off. I was going to wait and do that at the end, but I have to do it anyway, so. There's one. Two. The riveting sound of me unscrewing screws. And three. As you can see, those are slightly shorter than the longer screws. That's all the screws on this side. Go ahead and flip it over. Take out this other shallow screw that we have. When we get these apart, you'll see that these shallow screws are actually what hold the frame into the nylon grip. So, oh, I guess I should take the last screw out, which is our T10, which is how you set your tension for the blade. And we'll just drop that right there. And then that pulls our side plate off. Before I look at the rest of it, we'll go ahead and look at the side plate. You have these nice bushings into the nylon frame, or into the nylon handle, so you're not just screwing into plastic. It's pretty rigid, it seems pretty sturdy. So actually kind of impressed with that because it's kind of one of the things I don't like about the Griptilian is that rather than having, say, solid liners like that, it's got a frame inside of a nylon handle, and it seems to be sturdy enough. I just tend to like this better, but obviously I tend to like the old kind of outdated design anyway. So now here we have a spring that is for axis lock. You have one of these on each side of the frame. Take it off, you just go ahead and pull this end out. And then, there you go. It's got a little hook. Hooks just around there. You can see right where it hooks. So we got that off. Set that over there. Now I had didn't really want to push out too easily before the axle, actually, for the blade there. And what I did was I used a punch and I put it all the way down in, not touching the threads on the side, and just use that to push that out. I found that to be the easiest way to do that. So you don't have to use a punch, you could use something else. You could put the screw back in and then push it down as far as you could with the screw. You know, if you just put the screw in so it's like, okay, well maybe not. I like that, kind of like that, except maybe not cross-threaded. There we go. You put it back in like that and then use that to push it out some and then try to pull it out the other side. You could do it that way too. So anyway, now you can remove the blade. When you remove the blade, you'll have these two bearings, washers, whatever you want to call them, go on each side of the blade. They appear to be the same. You can remove the frame from the other side of the grip. And that just leaves you with the inner frame. On the other side, you have the same setup as we had on the first side with the spring for the axis, or axis lock. Go ahead and pop that out, unhook that. And I don't think I really showed you that too well the first time. That little hook hooks into that little hole right there in the side of the frame. Once you get that done, you can just take this, get that back where you can see it. Just take the axis lock, roll it down to there, and drop it out. And then the two sides come apart. Pretty simple, pretty simple. And this is definitely something you'll want to do if you've had your knife for a while, because when I took this one apart, although it looks nice and clean now, and these, let me just pull these out of here, but anyway, when I first took it apart, it was really dirty. There was a lot of dirt and grime built up right on this thing. So not so much inside, but there was a lot more dirt to it than what it looks like it has now. Okay, well, let's go ahead and reassemble it. Basically the same thing, but in reverse. Go ahead and click your two frame halves together. Put your axis lock. Put your axis lock back in. There you go. Take this side of the frame, or the handle, set the frame into it. Oh, you know, you might want to put your spring back on first. You do want to put your spring back on. So go ahead, once you've got your axis lock back in, take your round hook, hook it around there, and take your little L end of your spring and let it slide out of your fingers and go where it's not supposed to. This can be kind of a pain in the butt. It's not too bad, but there we go. Okay, that's in. And you'll see, even just with one on there, it works. So now we've got that back in. You want to take, well, let's take our axis pin first. And as you can see, it's got a flat, well, kind of see, there you go. It's got a flat, which corresponds to the flat in the frame. So you want to put that in there. Well, not going to do it that way, that would be silly. Just go ahead and set the frame into the grip. And then slide that in. Like so. And kind of hard to see there, but you'll want to push it in so that, there we go. It's actually a little far, but let's see if you can see it in there. Maybe not. No, it is not wanting to focus. There you go. You can kind of see it. There, that's, yeah. As you can see, the axis pin, or axis, there you go, is just outside of the frame, just a bit. And I did that so I can slide that bearing over it and it'll kind of hold it in place while I put the blade in. So, let's take your bearing washer, drop it on the table. Then after you've dropped it on the table, maybe once, maybe twice, let's go for 3 times. Oh, almost. Oh, you know, I did this the first time when I wasn't recording it. There we go. Now, I'm not going to slide it up too far. Just see it in there. See if I can get the light a little better. There you go. I can see it. It's in there. It's on it. Go ahead and take and slide your blade in, and when you do this, in order to get the pin to go through, you'll have to kind of pull the access lock back a little bit so the hole lines up correctly. Yep. Now this was a bit of a pain when I was doing it earlier. There we go. Now once you've gotten that in to where the blade is in place, like it is now, you can see it's about that far in. So you've got a little gap left in there still. Take and slide your other washer or bearing, or whatever you want to call it, back in place. And then probably have to move it around a bit to get it clear, which is a lot easier to do when you're actually looking on top of it. There you go. And then just push it the rest of the way through, which I'm not quite getting right, but and there we go. It is a little stiff to get in there. Now I did use the nylon head of my hammer to tap it the rest of the way in, but I mean that's not necessary. You don't have to do it that way. In fact, you could just leave it where it was, and then after we put it back together, use the axle. And actually when I do that, I'll show you what I would do. Anyway, let's go ahead and put the other spring back on, which goes on the same way the other one did. You have this hook, hooks around the axis, and then swing it around, and boop, there you go. Oh yeah, and when you're doing this, be careful. If your knife is sharp, which it should be sharp, honestly, don't cut yourself. Now that you have that all back together, which that's how it looks when it's all back together, take your other side of your handle, put it back on. Then I always like to use my tensioner as my first screw to go back in, just because that tends to hold everything in place until you get the rest of the screws in. And since that's usually the last one I take out, it is also the bit that I usually still have in. Now what I would have done, now I did tap that back in. Now where I had it, I didn't have to tap it back in. I could have put it back together like this, and I'm going to do this anyway. And I'm going to tighten the axle nut all the way back down. And actually I'll leave it right there. Or axle screw, I should say. Tensioner screw. However you'd want to put it. Since we're on this side, we'll go ahead and put the frame screw back in, which is our T6. Beep. And if you look at the screws from the factory, kind of hard to tell. They have some thread locker on the end, and you may want to also put thread locker back on there. I mean, it isn't a bad idea. You definitely don't want to over tighten them. If you've watched my other videos, you always just want to get it tight, not over tight. I've gotten that one in. Since we had to put the clip on the other side, we'll go ahead and do the clip next, which is our second shortest or second longest screw. So just screws right in. It's pretty simple, pretty simple. Make sure you're not cross-threading anything, although it kind of looks like I'm just cross-threading the hell out of those. I'm not though, trust me. Then again, just like any other screw, tight but not too tight. Do that one, and I'm not going to tighten any of them down at all until I get them all center one. Okay, now I'm gonna just tighten them all down. Okay, go ahead and flip it over and put these in place. These are the longest of the long, or the least short of the screws, go in the outer frame, and then the shortest of the screws, or the outer handle, and then the shortest of the screws goes to hold the handle of the frame. Boop. Boop. And as I said, you know, you may want to put some thread locker, just a small amount on each one. I don't tend to put thread locker on the screws in my knife, but I take my knife apart regularly to clean it, so, and I've not had a problem with my knife coming loose. But that is with my Benchmade knife, and that's definitely not something I would say with other knives, or with this knife necessarily, because I don't carry this knife every day, so I don't know. Okay. Okay. And tight. And tight. And tight. Okay. Now, since we tightened that axle screw all the way down, this is really tight because that's what sets the tension on it. So go ahead and back it off about 3/4 of a turn. See where that takes us. It's a little loose. Turn it back just a tad. Maybe I should have tightened it. Too tight. And that's pretty good. Since it's not my knife, I'll take that with me, and when I give it back to my buddy, I will check and see if he wants it tighter or looser or however he wants it. So basically that's it. It's pretty simple to take apart, put back together. Seems to be a good knife. Like I said, it's not my knife. I can't really tell you how good of a knife it is or how it holds up. I know that I've not had to sharpen it a whole lot. I know it gets a lot of use, or at least has gotten a lot of use. And the blade seems to be holding up. I know I saw that they're like $125 for the mini Griptilians, and I don't know. I don't know if I would say that they're worth $125 or if I would pay that for it, but it doesn't seem to be a bad knife. And if it were on sale, say at $100, I'd probably pay $100 for it. So anyway, if you found this helpful, and hopefully you did, go ahead and give it a like. If you watch some of my other videos and you enjoyed those, I'd appreciate if you subscribe. So thanks, and have a great day.